You may be working, getting ready to work, looking for work, or trying to recover from it. Modern life is organized around employment so completely that a world without jobs sounds impossible. Yet for nearly all of human existence, nobody had a resume, manager, shift schedule, or retirement plan. For roughly 290,000 years, modern humans survived without careers. There were responsibilities, skills, dangers, and effort, but no separate category called a job. So, what filled the day before employment became the center of life? The first mistake is assuming ancient people did nothing. Ancient humans were not idle. They hunted, gathered plants, cared for children, prepared food, repaired tools, moved camps, watched weather, treated injuries, and protected one another. The difference was control. Work happened because a need appeared, and it often ended when that need was satisfied. There was no supervisor extending the task because more hours remained on the clock. In many hunter-gatherer communities, people are not defined by one permanent occupation. Someone may hunt in the morning, repair shelter later, prepare a tool, teach a child, and join a group discussion at night. Knowledge is shared broadly because survival depends on flexibility. A person is not trapped inside one narrow function. They contribute according to age, ability, season, and circumstance. Anthropologists studying living hunter-gatherer societies have often found that essential food-gathering work occupies only part of the day. Estimates vary, but 3 to 5 hours is frequently discussed. That does not mean every moment outside those hours is effortless. Food must still be processed, tools maintained, and children cared for. But the endless full-day struggle imagined in popular culture is misleading. The remaining time can include conversation, play, rest, ceremony, visiting, storytelling, teaching, music, and making objects with no immediate survival value. Compare that rhythm with modern employment. A worker may spend 8 hours at work, another hour commuting, and additional time answering messages, preparing clothes, thinking about deadlines, or worrying about mourning. The official shift may be 8 hours, but the job reaches beyond it. Early humans also possessed environmental intelligence modern people rarely develop. They knew where water would appear after rain, when plants became edible, which tracks were fresh, how animals behaved, and how seasons changed the landscape. Hunting and gathering were efficient, not because nature always provided easily, but because knowledge accumulated across generations reduced wasted effort. The Hadza of Tanzania are often discussed because hunting and gathering remain important in their lives. Observations have shown men leaving to hunt for part of the morning, while women gather foods in groups, often combining necessary work with conversation. By later in the day, much of the food-related labor may be finished. Life is not free from difficulty, but the contrast with industrial time discipline is striking. Children in such communities are not always moved through tightly controlled calendars. They observe adults, imitate skills, explore, play, and learn through participation. Adults are not constantly measuring every activity by output. Time is not automatically treated as something that must be monetized. That freedom helped create more than survival. Humans painted cave walls tens of thousands of years ago. They shaped ornaments from shells, teeth, stone, and bone. They carved musical instruments and preserved stories through speech, ritual, and memory. None of this required a professional creative class. Art, music, craft, and storytelling were woven into ordinary life. People made beauty because they had imagination, culture, and time. The major transformation began with agriculture roughly 12,000 years ago. Farming allowed communities to support larger populations and remain in one place, but it created new demands. Land had to be cleared. Seeds had to be planted at the right time. Crops had to be weeded, watered, protected, harvested, dried, stored, and defended. Missing a task could destroy months of effort. Agriculture tied people to a location in a way mobile foragers had not been tied. A hunter-gatherer group facing depleted resources could move. A farming community with planted fields, stored grain, houses, and irrigation could not simply walk away. Labor invested in the land created dependence on the land. Human remains suggest early agricultural life often carried heavy costs. Compared with many hunter-gatherer populations, early farmers in some regions showed more evidence of nutritional stress, disease, repetitive strain, dental problems, and reduced average height. Farming increased the number of people a region could support, but it did not automatically improve each person's health or freedom. Permanent settlement also changed ownership. Mobile people can possess only what they can carry. Farmers can accumulate stored food, animals, tools, buildings, and land claims. Once wealth can be stored, it can be guarded, inherited, taxed, stolen, and concentrated. Some households gain more than others. Some people begin controlling resources everyone needs. Specialization grows from that system. A larger settlement can support potters, builders, weavers, metalworkers, soldiers, administrators, merchants, and priests. Specialization produces extraordinary skills, but it also creates dependency. A potter who spends years mastering pottery may no longer know enough about hunting, gathering, or farming to survive alone. The specialist needs food, tools, and protection from others. This is one root of the job. Employment did not appear because humanity held a meeting and chose a better system. It emerged gradually as communities grew, resources became controlled, and survival depended on organized exchange. People gained stability and specialized goods, but surrendered some freedom to walk away. Hunter-gatherer societies are often described as strongly egalitarian because domination is difficult when people can leave, refuse cooperation, or join another group. Leadership may exist, but authority is limited. In settled societies, power becomes easier to enforce. One person owns land, another controls grain, someone commands armed men, someone else supplies labor. Early cities turned these differences into institutions. Kings, officials, priests, merchants, soldiers, craftspeople, servants, and laborers occupied unequal positions. Those doing the hardest work often owned the least. Escape became difficult because available land was claimed and food passed through systems controlled by others. Freedom increasingly depended on wealth. For centuries, ordinary people did not have careers in the modern sense. They had obligations. Farmers worked by the seasons. Servants lived under household authority. Miners, builders, and laborers continued until injury, exhaustion, or age stopped them. Work was not a separate box within life. It consumed life. The Industrial Revolution created the recognizable modern job. Factories required workers to arrive at a fixed hour, perform repeated tasks, and remain until released. Time itself became something sold. Instead of producing mainly for a household or community, people exchanged hours of life for wages inside buildings they did not own. Those hours could be brutal. Adults and children worked long shifts in mines and mills. Textile dust damaged lungs. Machinery crushed limbs. Industrial accidents were common, and wages barely covered food and shelter. The system produced enormous wealth, but workers creating it often lived close to disaster. Shorter hours and safer conditions were not gifts. Labor movements organized strikes, formed unions, faced police, lost jobs, endured arrests, and sometimes died demanding reform. Weekends, safety rules, limits on child labor, and the 8-hour day were victories won after prolonged resistance. The 40-hour week once sounded radical. Today, it is treated as the minimum structure of adulthood, even when 40 hours does not provide enough income. Society built housing payments, insurance, transportation, debt, education, and retirement around the expectation that a person will keep selling time for decades. Technology was supposed to reduce that burden. Machines, computers, software, automation, and the internet made each hour far more productive. Yet work did not shrink in proportion. Many wages stagnated, availability expanded, and the boundary between office and home weakened. A device capable of saving time also made workers reachable at every moment. Some estimates suggest modern Americans work more annual hours than certain medieval laborers, who experienced intense agricultural seasons but also Sundays, religious festivals, and slower winter periods. The comparison is imperfect, but the point remains. Advanced technology does not automatically create leisure. A society can become more productive while leaving ordinary people with less control over time. The deepest change is psychological. Employment is no longer merely a way to obtain resources. It has become identity. Ask someone what they do, and the expected answer is an occupation. Lose that occupation, and others may assume you have lost status, direction, or purpose. But human beings existed for almost 300,000 years before modern employment. Our ancestors had skills, duties, relationships, and social roles. They worked, but they were not reducible to job titles. They moved, created, rested, explored, taught, argued, celebrated, mourned, and contributed to people they knew directly. We did not evolve specifically for fluorescent rooms, endless notifications, rigid schedules, and meetings about future meetings. We evolved for movement, cooperation, creativity, immediate problem solving, deep social contact, periods of effort, and periods of recovery. Jobs are not a law of biology. They are one historical arrangement among many. They brought stability, specialization, large-scale production, and technologies our ancestors could never have imagined. They also demanded hierarchy, dependence, and the sale of enormous portions of human time. The question is not whether the past was perfect. It was dangerous, uncertain, and often harsh. The question is whether progress must always require surrendering control over most of our waking lives. Our ancestors left behind painted caves, carved flutes, ecological knowledge, and stories that outlived generations. They possessed fewer objects, but many possessed something modern people now try to recover through vacations: flexible schedules, early retirement, and financial freedom. They possessed time that still belonged to them. And after thousands of years of building civilization, we are still working to buy that time back.